I want to thank some of the great people from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. They're here to take photographs, and it's my honor to do so. Also, the fire department, the great firefighters. So they're here throughout the room, and I want to thank you very much for being here. I'll be with you in a little while. We'll do some great photos. We have plenty of time. Policemen, policewomen, and firemen, firewomen, they're here, and we appreciate it very much. You've done a fantastic job. I think it's very important to state that incredible things are happening in our country. I think we've made more progress in 3 weeks than they've made in 4 years, especially with respect to the reputation of our country. And people are respecting us again as a country and as a powerful country, and maybe a smart country, but maybe not so smart, because when you look at some of the waste, fraud, and abuse that's being uncovered by DOJ and the people at DOJ, these are young, often young, but super brilliant people, incredible computer scientists and other things, and they're finding levels of fraud and waste and abuse like I think nobody ever thought possible. But before we do that, I just want to ask Will to come over. I've just finished signing some executive orders, and if we could start with that, Will, you might want to come up here and just explain what we did. Thank you.
Good afternoon, y'all. A short while ago, President Trump signed three items. The first is an executive order relating to the affordability and availability of in vitro fertilization and other fertility treatments. These are treatments that have become unaffordable for many Americans, or have been unaffordable for many Americans. And the executive order is a directive to the Domestic Policy Council to examine ways to make IVF and other fertility treatments more affordable for more Americans. The second item that we signed was a presidential memorandum imposing radical transparency requirements on government departments and agencies, in keeping with President Trump and the administration's broader commitment to governmental transparency. What this presidential memorandum would do is require, as waste, fraud, and abuse is uncovered, as programs are canceled, and ultimately as taxpayer dollars are saved, this presidential memorandum would require departments and agencies to make all of the details of that freely available to the public. Lastly, we have another executive order that President Trump signed relating to independent agencies. This executive order would establish important oversight functions in the Office of Management and Budget and its subsidiary office, OIRA, supervising independent agencies and many of their actions, and also reestablishes the longstanding norm that only the President or the Attorney General can speak for the United States when stating an opinion as to what the law is.
Thank you very much, Will. That was the primary purpose of this conference, to explain that they're all very important in their own way. Fertilization, I've been saying that we're going to do what we have to do, and I think the women and families, husbands, are very appreciative of it. But that was it. I do want to say while I'm up here, I've been contacted by some of the biggest companies in the world, and because of what we're doing economically and through tariffs and taxes and incentives, they want to come back into the United States. And we'll be announcing various very large companies, the biggest actually, and they'll be coming back, having to do with chips and having to do also with cars and lots of other things. We're going to be announcing some very, very big, momentous decisions are being made by companies all around the world, the biggest, and they want to come back into the U.S. Car plants are being canceled in other locations now because they want to build them here. And you read about a couple, not that I want to mention names or anything, but you read about a couple of big ones in Mexico just got canceled because they're going to be building them in the United States. And that's very simply because of what we're doing with respect to taxes, tariffs, and incentives. And I think it's a very important thing. And you'll be seeing this over the next probably over the next 2 years, to be honest, but you're going to see a lot of it over the next couple of weeks. A lot of big ones are going to be announcing. And so while we're here, I guess we can take a couple of quick questions. Go ahead, please. Please.
Mr. President, have you decided specifically what the auto tariff rate should be?
Yeah, I probably will tell you that on April 2nd, but it'll be in the neighborhood of 25%.
What about semiconductor sectors and pharmaceuticals?
It'll be 25% and higher, and it'll go very substantially higher over a course of a year. But we want to give them time to come in because, as you know, when they come into the United States and they have their plant or factory here, there is no tariff. So we want to give them a little bit of a chance. Yes, thank you.
The EU, I'm sorry, Andrea Shalal, the EU representative is going to be here in Washington next week. I'm sorry, tomorrow. He's going to be meeting with Hassett and Greer and Letnick. What can the EU do to sort of avoid the reciprocal tariffs that you've talked about? And, you know, you've talked a lot about the VAT. Do you expect them to reduce that?
Well, they did already, as I understand it, reduce their car tariff all the way down to what we have. And a lot of that will take place, and I think some won't do it and some will do it. But the EU had a 10% tax on cars, and now they have a 2.5% tax, which is the exact same as us. So already we've saved a tremendous amount. That would be great. If everybody would do that, then we'd all be on the same playing field. Because essentially what we're doing with the tariffs is, you know, they charge us, we charge them, same amount. And it's called reciprocal, actually. And whatever they charge us, we're charging them. And so the EU is, you know, I appreciate that they did this, but, you know, the EU has been very unfair to us. We have a deficit of $350 billion. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They don't take almost anything. They take very little. And we're going to have to straighten that out. And we will. I have no doubt about it. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Russia talks, your impression of how they went today, and if you're perhaps more confident or less confident of a deal after what happened today?
Well, much more confident. They were very good. Russia wants to do something. They want to stop the savage barbarianism. I mean, what's going on over there? It's soldiers are being killed by the thousands on a weekly basis. It's ridiculous. And they're not American soldiers. They're Russian soldiers, and they're Ukrainian soldiers largely, although a lot of Koreans have been killed, as you know. Quite a bit of them have been killed. They came over to fight, and a large portion have been wiped out. But we want to end it. It's a senseless war. It should have never happened, would have never happened if I was president, and it's a shame to see it. And I see pictures that you don't see, but I see pictures of fields that look just horrible. It looks like Gettysburg. If you see the old pictures of Gettysburg, it's soldiers lying all over the field, body parts all over the field. They're all dead. And this is going on a daily basis. It's a horrible thing. Both Russia and Ukraine, they're losing thousands and thousands of soldiers. And a lot of people have been killed, too. I think that's one of the things that you'll see historically and you'll see later on as it goes along. I think people are going to be surprised at how many people, not only soldiers, have been killed in Ukraine. A lot more people than you think. Yeah, please.
President Trump, as part of a peace deal with Putin, would you be willing to consider removing all American troops from Europe?
Well, nobody's asked me to do that, so I don't think we'd have to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. But that question's never really come up. Yeah. Please.
Sir, do you support stationing European peacekeeping troops in Ukraine as part of this peace deal?
If they want to do that, that's great. I'm all for it. If they want to do that, I think that'd be fine.
Even if the Russians are...
I mean, I know France has mentioned it. Others have mentioned it. UK has mentioned it. But, yeah, if we have a peace deal, I think having troops over there from the standpoint of Europe, we won't have to put any over there because, you know, we're very far away. But having troops over there would be fine. I would not object to it at all. We're talking about this now, peace. We have either a ceasefire or a peace itself, and we're looking to do both. We'd start off with the ceasefire, and if they want to do that. I know France was willing to do that, and I thought that was a beautiful gesture. Yeah, please.
Do you have any message for Ukrainians who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, and I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their sides. You have those magnificent golden domes that are shattered, will never be replaced. You can't replace them. 1,000-year-old domes that are so beautiful. You can't replace that. A whole civilization has changed because of what. So when they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago. You could have made a deal. This is one that could have made a deal. There was no talk of this during the Trump administration. Putin would have never, ever done it. And by the way, we wouldn't have had October 7th. You know that. We wouldn't have had October 7th either in Israel. And we wouldn't have had that mess that's going on over there. It's like we have great fire people here. We're putting out fires. All over the world we're putting out fires. So that wouldn't have happened. And you know what else wouldn't have happened? Inflation. Because it was caused really by the cost of energy going through the roof because of their bad energy policies and also their spending, their terrible spending, wasteful spending on the Green New Scam. It's a scam. It's a whole big scam. Yeah, please.
Yes, sir. I want to ask you a little closer to home. What would it take for you to reconsider the restrictions on the Associated Press? And secondly, some of your advisors are concerned with the Associated Press's style guide, using language and giving guidance to not use words like illegal immigrant or to use phrases like gender-affirming care. And they're concerned about that being an encroaching amount of liberalism in the way in which the press writes about things. Do you share those concerns?
Well, I do think that some of the phrases that they want to use are ridiculous, and I think, frankly, they become obsolete, especially in the last 3 weeks, because many things have happened in the last 3 weeks. And I didn't know about that, but I would say that if they want to use certain phrases like that, and I guess some are okay, but many aren't, but the Associated Press just refuses to go with what the law is and what is taking place. It's called the Gulf of America now. It's not called the Gulf of Mexico any longer. I have the right to do it, just like we have the right to do Mount McKinley, and nobody's even challenging that. But only the essentially, it's primarily the Associated Press, and I don't know what they're doing, but I just say that we're going to keep them out until such time as they agree that it's the Gulf of America. We're very proud of this country, and we want it to be the Gulf of America. Now, the Associated Press, as you know, has been very, very wrong on the election, on Trump and the treatment of Trump and other things having to do with Trump and Republicans and conservatives. And they're doing us no favors, and I guess I'm not doing them any favors. That's the way life works. But, you know, thank you for the question. Who are you with? Very good question. Thank you. Yes.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, or essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating, and where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. The whole, I mean, so many of the cities. I mean, they haven't done it in Kiev because I guess they don't want to shoot too many rockets in there. They've done it 20%, but they haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you have cities that are absolutely decimated. And yeah, I would say that, you know, when they want a seat at the table, you could say the people have to, wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, you know, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also. You know, Ukraine is being just wiped out. Look at what's happening to the cities. There are cities, there's not even a building standing. It's a massive, you talk about Gaza. I mean, it's literally, these cities look like Gaza. Actually, many have, percentage-wise, more buildings knocked down than in Gaza. So, you know, people are tired of it. People want to see something happen. And, you know, the other thing that it's been bothering me for a long time, because I solved the problem with NATO. They paid hundreds of billions of dollars into the funds of NATO when I said you got to pay. because the United States was paying for European countries, and then they take advantage of us on trade. But I've seen it. Look, they have to pay. They have to find out, where is the money going to? We have, I believe President Zelensky said last week that he doesn't know where half of the money is that we gave him. Well, we gave them, I believe, $350 billion, but let's say it's something less than that, but it's a lot. And we have to equalize with Europe, because Europe has given us given a very much smaller percentage than that. I think Europe has given $100 billion, and we've given, let's say, 300 plus, and it's more important for them than it is for us. We have an ocean in between, and they don't. But where is all the money that's been given? Where is it going? And nobody, I've never seen an accounting of it. We give hundreds of billions of dollars. I don't see any accounting. So I want to see peace. Look, you know why I want? Because I don't want all these people killed anymore. I'm looking at people that are being killed, and they're Russian and Ukrainian people, but they're people. Doesn't matter where they're from on the whole planet. And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue. What he was so bad for this. He was so bad, so pathetic. It's so sad. But with all of that being said, look, it is what it is. When I left, there was no chance that this could have happened. But it happened because we had incompetent leadership at many different levels. But when you see what's taken place in Ukraine with millions of people killed, including the soldiers, millions of people killed, a big percentage of their cities knocked down to the ground. I don't know how anybody even lives there. You know, when they say they took a poll and Zelensky's at 4%, who's living there? You know, I mean, it's hard to believe that people live there. Their cities are being knocked down. And this is something that would have never happened. And by the way, for 4 years, it didn't happen. It was never going to happen. Go ahead.
One follow-up question. How would you counter the perception, because Russia's pushing for this, obviously, they don't really hold true elections, that would be a capitulation of some sort. How would you guard against potentially Russia installing a puppet government? And then finally, how would that new election have an impact on getting Zelensky to sign the rare earth minerals deal?
Look, you have leadership, and I like him personally. He's fine. But I don't care about personally. I care about getting the job done. You have leadership now that's allowed a war to go on that should have never even happened, even without the United States. Look, we had a president who was grossly incompetent. He had no idea what he was doing. He said some very stupid things, like going in for portions and all of the things. He made a lot of bad statements, but he's grossly incompetent, and I think everyone knew that. This is something that should have never happened, would have never happened. And I used to discuss it with Putin. President Putin and I would talk about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, I will tell you that. But there was never a chance of him going in. And I told him, you better not go in. Don't go in. Don't go in. And he understood that. He understood it fully. But I'm only interested. I want to see if I can save maybe millions of lives. This could even end up in a World War III. I mean, to be honest with you, you've been hearing now Europe is saying, well, I think we're going to go in and we're going to go. All of a sudden, you're going to end up in World War III over something that should have never happened. And, you know, it's a very sad situation. Yeah, please.
In a court filing, the White House said that Elon Musk is not a DOJ employee and has no authority to make decisions. Can you clarify for us today
well, Elon
what
Musk,
his exact role is there?
Yeah. Elon is, to me, a patriot. So, you know, you could call him an employee, you could call him a consultant, you could call him whatever you want. But he's a patriot. I mean, look at the kind of things. I just said, just write it down, just in case that question got asked, right? And which I'm surprised it took so long, actually. But you know what? Ukraine's a bigger deal because people are dying by the thousands a week, thousands. But look at this, from 90 to 99, Social Security, 6,054,000 people. Well, that's okay. Maybe that's possible. You know, 90 to 99, maybe it's possible. It's a lot of people, though, at that. But people that live to 100 to 109, 4,734,000. Wow, that's a lot. That means over 100 years old. They have 4 million people. I don't know too many. I know people that are doing great in their 90s, but not too many people over 100. But over 120, from 120 years old, people that are 120 years old up to 129, 3,472,000 people. Wow. You know that can't possibly be, because the record is like, I think it's one person, a woman, lived to 127, but they have 3,472. Okay, but now we're going really in. People from 130 years old to 139-year-old, 3,936,000. Wow. I wonder if people are getting paid with all this. I mean, are these checks? And that's what we're checking right now. People from 140 years old to 149 years old, 3,542,000, 140 years old and beyond. Now we're really going, because we're looking to break the record by 25 years. People from 150 years old to 159 years old, 1,345,000. These are in the, by the way, these are in the computer files. This is what they do well. They're super. I asked Elon, who are these Doge people? He said they're super brilliant computer people and they love the country. It's simple. Wait a minute. People from 160 years old to 169 years, 121,000. So 160-year-old people. 170 to 179,000, 6,087. But now, let's go into the real numbers. From 200 to 209 years old, 879 people. From 210 years old, I haven't met any of them. And if I did, I would bless them. I would worship the ground they walk on. 210 to 219 years, 866. From 220 years old to 229 years old, 1,039. And then you have two people. From 240 years old to 249 years old, one person. And there's one person that's 360 years old. That's just that. And then, where's the money being spent, right? Let's go into that for just a second. $520 million for a consultant on the environment. It's called Environmental, Social, and Governance. Investments in Africa and mobilize private sector resources. $520 million. Somebody got $520 million for an environmental, sounds like an environmental study. I've always been one that paid a lot of money for my environmental studies, but I paid like $50,000, not $520 million. $520 million for ESG. $25 million to promote biodiversity, conservation, and promote licit livelihoods by developing socially responsible behavior in the country of Colombia. Well, it's nice, $25 million to go into Colombia for something that nobody ever heard of. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. $40 million. $42 million for Johns Hopkins, great place, to research and drive social and behavior change in Uganda. $42 million. What about us? What about social change in our country? $70 million for a center at Purdue to research university-sourced, evidence-based solutions to developmental challenges. I mean, these are massive numbers on things that nobody ever heard about. $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical male circumcisions. $10 million for circumcisions in another country. $9.7 million for UC Berkeley to develop a cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. In other words, let's teach them something about enterprise. What about our people? Can't we teach them about enterprise? $2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia. $32 million to the Prague Civil Society Center, which is a very liberal group of people. Wonder how much of that money came back to the people that approved it. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $486 million to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, including $22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova, and $21 million for voter turnout in India. Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout. It's voter turnout in India. What about, like, voter turnout here? Oh, we've done that, I guess. We did $500 million, didn't we? It's called the lockboxes. $20 million for fiscal federalism in Nepal. Listen to these numbers. This is all fraud. $19 million for biodiversity conservation in Nepal. $1.5 million for voter confidence. We want to give them confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $2.5 million for inclusive democracies in South Africa. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well. They're doing a lot better than we do in the schools, aren't they? $2 million to develop sustainable recycling models to increase socioeconomic cohesion among marginalized communities in Kosovo and Eskali and in Egypt. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. I could, by the way, I could read this all day long. I could go on all day long, and you'll see hundreds of billions of dollars, and we're doing it. But when I saw the Social Security numbers, I said, wow, that's really something. So we have, let's just go above 100 years old. We have millions and millions of people over 100 years old. Everybody knows that's not so. We have a very corrupt country, and it's a sad thing to say, but we're figuring it out. Now, the good thing about Social Security and what I read is if you take all of those numbers off, because they're obviously fraudulent or incompetent, but if you take all of those millions of people off Social Security, all of a sudden we have a very powerful Social Security with people that are 80 and 70 and 90, but not 200 years old. You know, so it's a very positive thing. How about over here? Yeah, please.
Your reaction to Michelle King, the head resigning after the Doge.
Who resigned?
The head of Social Security.
I don't know. I mean, I resigned or got fired. I think got fired. You know, when you fire somebody, they always resign, and then they say, we resigned. But when you have numbers like that, I think really it's got fired. They have to get fired. Who would keep them? How could you have numbers like this? Now, the big thing is, how many of these people got paid? Were they getting paid? Were they getting paid? How many of them were getting paid Social Security? Because if that's the case, it's a massive fraud. We'll have to call those great Palm Beach police into this situation, right? You guys would figure that out very quickly. But how many of them are being paid? I mean, maybe millions of them, but it's a total fraud. Also, a lot of illegal immigrants are in Social Security that shouldn't be there. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, there was a big wave of probationary federal workers who were fired over the weekend. Some of these workers focused on nuclear weapons security, were immediately rehired. Do you have any concerns about how these terminations have
No,
occurred?
not at all. I think we have to just do what we have to do. It's, you know, you're going to, it's amazing what's been found right now. It's amazing. If we feel that in some cases they'll fire people and then they'll put some people back, not all of them, because a lot of people were let go. Don't forget, I got elected on the basis of making our government stronger and smaller, because we have millions of people that obviously they're paying millions of people that shouldn't be paid. And that has also to do with workers. Yeah, please. No, go ahead. Axios, New York Times.
Sorry. Mr. President, given your concerns about corruption, you said that if there were any conflicts of interest with Elon Musk, you wouldn't let him anywhere near it.
That's right.
Doge and SpaceX employees are now working directly at the Federal Aviation Administration and the Defense Department. agencies that have billions of dollars in contracts with Musk's companies or that directly regulate his companies. How is that not a conflict of interest?
Well, I mean, I'm just hearing about it, and if there is, and he told me before I told him, but obviously I will not let there be any conflict of interest. He's done an amazing job. They've revealed, in fact, he's going to be on tonight, a big show called Sean Hannity at 9 o'clock, and he's on and I'm on, and we talk about a lot of different things. And any conflicts, I told Elon, any conflicts, you can't have anything to do with that. So anything to do with possibly even space, we won't let Elon partake in that. Yeah, please.
On immigration, sir, you said you would be sending the worst of the worst to Guantanamo Bay. What we're finding out is that there are a lot of low-risk migrants who don't have a criminal background who are also being sent. Are you thinking about this differently now?
No, they're going to be brought back to their countries. And with some persuasion, every one of those countries, everyone in the, as you know, every country is taking the people back. So some of them are going to be brought back to, many of them, any of them that are low risk, as you say, are going to be brought back to their countries. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Can you give us a bit of an update on where you stand with Venezuela?
Yeah,
It's
sure.
oil. There's basically a monthly license that can soon extend.
Well, you know, we had Venezuela on the run, and it looked like that was going to be very good. And when Biden came in, as he always does, he screws it up. And they started buying millions and millions and millions of dollars of oil, billions of dollars actually, of oil, and it gave them a new lease, a new really lease on life. But we'll see. We had some pretty good discussions with a lot of people within our government and the United States government that are involved in that. And Venezuela's a little bit early, but, you know, we were not buying from Venezuela. When Biden came in, for whatever reason, instead of just taking the beautiful, as I call it, liquid gold, we have more than anybody, they started paying a fortune to Venezuela. And we're looking at that, actually. Why did they do that? Why were they doing that? Why would they go to the enemy and give them billions and billions of dollars? Now, with that being said, as you know, Venezuela has said very strongly they will not take any illegal immigrant, any of the people that they sent over to us. They sent their gangs, probably the worst gang anywhere in the world, as bad as MS-13, maybe worse. And they came out of the jails of Venezuela. They emptied their jails into our country. And they said, we'll never take them back. Well, they took them back, and they're taking them back, and they are taking them back rapidly. They were sending a lot of people to Venezuela. They said they wouldn't take them back, and they are taking back. But we're looking at Venezuela very seriously, and we're going to be able to. Don't forget, I've only been here for 3 weeks. Yeah, please.
Just a little clarity on, are you inclined to continue to allow Venezuela, through, I think, Chevron and other oil companies, to export those petroleum products, or are you
maybe not
to pull back on
Yeah, maybe not. We're looking at that now. I just got here. When I left, they weren't doing anything. They were ready to go. We give up. And then Biden came along and he gave them literally billions of dollars. I couldn't believe it, actually. And we have so much under our feet, liquid gold. We have so much, and it was pretty amazing. So we're looking at that whole situation, why he did it. All right, how about one more? Yeah, please.
President, what can you tell us about the CIA drone flights over Mexico? Is this the next step in the war against the cartels?
Well, we're going to see.
Should they have authority to take lethal action?
Mexico's allowed a tremendous number of people to go through their country into ours, and even people coming from Mexico, and illegals, totally illegal. They've allowed people to empty jails into Mexico and then let them come through with this totally ridiculous open border policy of the Biden administration. So millions of people have come in, and hundreds of thousands, and actually millions, are criminals. They came in from jails all over the world. They'd release them into Mexico, and they come into our country. And they also came in from Canada, by the way, large numbers through Canada. In fact, when we closed up the one border, they came in through the other border. So Canada is not an uninterested party. But I will say this. We're dealing with Mexico. I have a very good relationship with Mexico, but I think Mexico is largely run by the cartels, and that's a sad thing to say. And if they wanted help with that, we'd give them help. But Mexico, if you look at what's gone on with Mexico for years now, but now especially it's run by the cartels. And they've allowed millions of people to come into our country from jails and prisons of other countries from all over the world, not just South America, Africa, Asia, all over. A lot from the Congo in Africa, a lot. They opened their jails. They came in through Mexico. And we have some of the worst criminals coming in from the Congo and other places. So it's not just South America, and it's not just Venezuela, but they opened their jails. And you know the crime rates in Venezuela and other places all over the world has gone way down. You know why? Because they've given us their prisoners, they've given us their drug lords and their gang members. And it's hard to believe that we accepted this. It's hard to believe that we allowed open borders, and we're taking in, hundreds of thousands and millions of people coming in from all over the world that are absolute stone-cold criminals. In fact, 11,088 murderers, and many of those people have murdered more than one person. Why are they giving us these people, and why are we taking these people under Biden? You had a border czar that never went to the border. Happened to be a vice president, never went to the border, never called the border people. I call them all the time. I speak to them all the time. But here's the good news. We have the most secure border we've ever had right now. As secure and even more secure than I had it 4 years ago. And the Border Patrol is doing incredible. ICE is doing incredible. Tom Homan's unbelievable. And Kristi Noem has been just working very, very hard. Very, very hard. And we have the best numbers we've ever had. And we're going to keep it that way. And we're going to find out how a thing like this could have happened to our country. Because who would allow this to happen? What they've done to our country is so sad. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, President, before the end of the month. Thank you, President.
观众朋友们好，欢迎大家来到今天的思想先驱报的现场啊。那么在之前的节目中呢，我们集中为大家讲的是以新闻和最新事件为主的相关分析等等等等。那也有网友提出啊，说在你们的节目中啊，能不能针对一些常青的话题进行一些更深入的分析？那我也想啊，到底什么样的话题才既让网友感兴趣，同时又能经得起时间的考验呢？那么首先想到的就是 AI。那近期啊，我是特别读了美国著名的作家Stephen Witt 给黄仁勋先生的一本传记啊。这本传记的英文名字叫做 The Thinking Machine， 我们叫做思维机器啊。但是呢，它的这个中文版的名字好像翻译的似乎更艺术一些，叫做黄仁勋英伟达之心啊。这个心呢，那可以说是一语双关啊，既是芯片的心，又是英伟达的心脏啊，这样的一个心脏的心。那么今天呢，我们就从这一本书最开始的引言开始，为大家详细的介绍。在随后的一系列节目中呢，我们每天都会为大家针对书中的一些精彩的观点，以及一些之前没有看到的作者在独家采访中揭示的黄仁勋的身世，为我们的观众朋友们进行介绍。那么今天我们首先讲到的呀，是作者威特在与黄仁勋对话的时候，对于黄仁勋的一些印象。他就讲到说这个黄仁勋呢出生于台湾，10岁的时候到美国。虽然呢可以说很小到美国，那么我们听到黄仁勋他与美国的文化这一种幽默轻松这一种个人魅力，似乎也颇具美国式的科技界大佬的特点。但是在2023年，作者在与黄仁勋首次采访在丹尼餐厅共进早餐的时候，黄仁勋却告诉他说，在内心深处，我永远是一个移民，我永远是一个中国人。为什么这么说呢？他这个话不是说他爱中国还是爱美国他说他始终保持着一种外来者的视角。他10岁的时候到美国之后，这一家丹尼餐厅就是他融入美国社会的实验场。他讲到说我小时候吃遍了菜单上所有的菜品那么1993年他30岁的时候呢，与其他人共同创办英伟达， 也是在这一家餐厅制定了英伟达的商业计划书。那一天在接受采访的时候啊，黄仁勋也和丹尼餐厅的服务员聊天。黄仁勋的胃口显得非常好，点了7样东西，包括一个 Super Bird 大的超级三文治，还有一份炸鸡排。哇，如此的胃口好。他对采访者说你知道吗，我原来在这儿当洗碗工的时候，我工作就非常的努力，正是因为我非常的努力，他们才升职我做餐厅的服务员。那么黄仁勋到底是怎样的一个人呢？黄仁勋啊，在这个作者看来有几个特点。第一，就是敢于背道而驰。之前其实我们在节目中也为大家介绍到啊，英伟达最开始瞄准的是什么呢？就是在这个93年的时候，刚刚初起的高端电子游戏的图形处理市场。那个时候啊，黄仁勋的产品可以说是深受欢迎，因为客户那个时候是喜欢自己来组装电脑的啊。但是啊，后来啊，黄仁勋就做了一个非常冒险的决定，是什么呢？因为在90年代末的时候啊，因为像雷神之锤呀这一些游戏对于显示有了更高的要求，那英伟达呢也对于处理器的电路架构做了调整，能够同时处理多个问题。这一种方法就是现在已经大大有名的叫做并行计算。黄仁勋就讲到啊，说之前呢并行计算的商业成功率是多少？是0啊，有一大串初创企业都是试图做并行计算，最后呢是以失败告终。但是啊，黄仁勋就讲到说，我就是要把它商业化，可以说啊，当时与华尔街投资者的观点背道而驰。他就发现呢，除了游戏玩家之外，还注重的是什么呢？就是真的需要大量算力的客户，不仅仅是游戏，比如放射科的医生，比如深海石油勘探等等等等。但是啊，这样的一个赌注可以说让市场对于它十分的失望。在这个期间呢，英伟达的股价是出现了很大程度的下跌甚至呢是出现了很多恶意收购的请求。那么呢，黄仁勋最后呢是保住自己的职位，可以说是经历了千难万险。直到这个2012年多伦多的几个学者买了几个英伟达的消费级的视频游戏显卡。他们可不是资深的游戏玩家，他们为什么要这种显卡呢？是用来训练当时人工智能的，我们叫做前沿领域神经网络。这个神经网络大家一听名字其实呢是模仿生物大脑结构的这么一个东西，但是呢当时在研究人员这儿看来呀，它并不是一个非常时兴的研究领域。后来黄仁勋看到多伦多的研究学家在神经网络在并行计算平台上的训练速度非常的快，他突然就觉得我要把整个公司的命运都压注在这样的一种共生关系上，也就是人工智能、神经网络再加上并行计算。这样的一个冒险最后被证明是成功的。那么英伟达的市值也是飙升了数百倍。但是我们说两种失败的技术，最后呢在黄仁勋这儿彻力一赌博，却赌成功了。这个中间的风险也的确是非常的大。有一句话呀，大家可能已经听说到了，说在这个 AI 界呀，黄仁勋是卖铲子的。这个话是哪儿来的呢？那我们知道美国曾经的这个淘金热19世纪40年代末在旧金山呢有一位加州的首位百万富翁，叫什么呢？叫 Brennan 叫布兰南。在别人都去淘金的时候，这个布兰南就突然脑洞大开，我呀不去淘金，我卖铲子。为什么呢？那么多人淘金，肯定对铲子需求非常的大。现在在人工智能时代呀，英伟达卖的不是铲子，而是包含1000亿个晶体管的人工智能训练芯片，售价3万美元。现在呢，如果你要买它最新硬件你可能要等超过1年的时间，需求量实在是太大了。 而在黑市啊，这个芯片的价格可以达到官方售价的几倍，仍然是供不应求。这个传记作者就发现呢，说你在和黄仁勋聊天的时候，你就发现他思考问题的方式不像是个商人，更像是他的老本行，一个工程师。为什么呢？因为他最擅长的就是把复杂的问题分解成为简单的一些原则他呢不是一个搞噱头讲这个故事的人，他更多的是把问题拆解来解决问题这样的一个人。当然了，现在在 AI 领域也有很多的质疑，特别是 AI 是不是会危险呢？一个自主行动的机器人是不是有可能会毁灭人类呀？黄仁勋对于这种悲观论调嗤之以鼻。他说人工智能是纯粹的推动进步的力量。为什么呢？他就说，如果你懂的话，就没有这样的担忧了，也不会有这样的恐惧了。他说它就是一个处理数据的问题而已不要对它忧心忡忡。而要说到黄仁勋的个性特点作者还注意到了一点是什么呢？就是他非常不喜欢谈论自己。那我们知道，一般商界的大佬都是喜欢对于自己的成功往事、光荣历史夸夸其谈有一次他曾经为这个《纽约客》要写一篇有关于黄仁勋的专访，是在出版这一本书之前。结果在写这本书的时候，这个作者发现，采访完黄仁勋之后，黄仁勋至今都没有读过他给《纽约客》当年写的有关于黄仁勋的文章，也没有打算就读。在得知黄仁勋要被这本传记书的作者写一整本书的时候，黄仁勋的反应是什么呀？他说：“我希望在出书之前我就已经死了是这样的一个态度。”在今天的节目刚开始的这一部分呢，我们特别为大家介绍到黄仁勋讲自己永远是一个外来者，而在作者看来，有的时候黄仁勋的这一种自卑那么是让他觉得有一点动容。他现在最不安的事情是什么呢？仍然是担心给自己的家族蒙羞。他讲到驱赶我向前的就是这样一种深深的自卑和焦虑感，当然也有被自己所开创的技术所释放的惊人力量的深深的吸引。他讲到说我每天工作12到14个小时，每一周工作7天，常年无休，在担任 CEO 长达30几年之后也是这样。他就讲到始终贯穿我人生主题的这样的一个核心词，就是勤奋、勇气，掌握基本的原则，一次一次的放大。作者很快也了解到，73年的时候，当时还是一个移民小男孩来到美国，没有父母陪伴的时候黄仁勋其实呢就有这样的一种在深深的自卑感以及在不断执着的努力之下，一步一步向前走的一种亚洲人的实干精神。因此在今天节目之后，后续的部分我们会继续为大家追踪黄仁勋的往事，特别是他最开始到美国，在这样一所贫困的乡村学校的各种各样的喜怒哀乐。好了，以上就是本期节目为大家介绍的相关内容。如果您对于英伟达和黄仁勋关心，特别是有关于这一位 AI 领域的，有人称他叫做 AI 工具教父的商业人士到底是如何成长的，那也请您关注我们的节目，我们会在后续的一系列节目中不断为大家讲英伟达以及黄仁勋的故事。
现在的人呢，很难想象以前的人为了找到一张报纸一份杂志，或者是能够借到一本书大家都是传来传去报纸破损了，杂志掉页了，书呢突然之间发现有几页不见了或者说呢，那个时候甚至还有人呢为了提供更多的机会看到某本书，还是出现了手抄本。现在人呢已经没有多少心思能够静下来看一本书，因为每一天能够接受的信息已经是铺天盖地而来，而且现在的这个局势的发展和 之前人类写的很多书的描述啊，或者是感慨啊，或者是这种思想性的总结啊，或者前瞻啊，其实有时候很难对接得上来。但是呢，人性的故事仍然还是非常的值得去看一看啊。尤其是李奇博士介绍的这本书我觉得是我个人是非常喜欢看到的一本书。黄仁勋这个形象出现的时候，我了解的是比较晚的，但是他这种讲话的风格做事情的方式，甚至他的外表的形象，对于我来讲都有一份亲切感。因为我是比较早的这个接触港商、接触台商尤其是跟台湾成长起来的一批企业家、一批商人非常熟悉那么所以黄仁勋的身上给我的一种感觉就是一档台商的味道有一份谦卑甚至呢又有美国人的成长的企业家的一种幽默一种自嘲。当然更重要的是给我的感觉是他的真实尤其是他在讲各种各样的故事的时候很少把个人的故事讲得那么神奇，他更多的是跟大家解释他的一个事情的一个思考，一个事情的一种困惑。尤其是他到了今天他大可以讲自己是成为了美国力量的一部分，美国价值的一个体现，但是他仍然说他仍然忘不记自己的这种移民的身份。虽然他并不是生活在一个唐人街或者是一个华人聚集非常多的一个地方，是一个比较偏僻或者说在美国的洛杉矶、旧金山、西雅图这个波士顿、芝加哥和纽约相比，那真的是一个人员比较稀少、华人更少的地方但是呢，在这样一个文化中间成长他还能够保持一个华人的一个品质他有时候还可以讲这个国语讲得还不错有时候甚至还出现了扭秧歌我就搞不清楚黄仁勋他这种自然他这种给人感觉的又比较得体尤其是能够体谅这个人的这种情感我注意到了他无论是去越南还是回到台湾那么都是喜欢呢吃夜市这是普通人的一个基本的一种生活的这个形态。这个黄仁勋他到底是怎么形成的每个人成长的故事都是可以说是很漫长的一个故事，尤其对于黄仁勋这样一个人来讲我觉得我们应该有机会的话了解一下他的整个的过程，无论是他的困惑也好，他的艰辛也好，他的创新的精神也好，还是他的某一些传奇色彩我觉得都应该这个大家去感受一下因为他今天不仅是一个华人，而且是世界上在顶尖的一个企业家之一更重要的是他现在所从事的这个英达可以说是全世界新技术革命的一个推动者或者是一个工具者提供了铲子，但是比铲子更丰富更有趣，因为这一次不仅是一个淘金这一次人工智能机器人的出现将会改变人类是一个人类有史以来最伟大的一次工业革命最具有突破性，而且很难想象未来是一个什么样子的一次变革所以呢，我希望跟大家一起来学习这本书感谢李奇博士，感谢我们的观众也请大家呢把大家这个所听到的李奇博士介绍的内容这个感想写在我们的留言区当然欢迎你给我们的节目点赞打赏支持，谢谢。
欢迎来到六度解析新闻背后的多维思考，带你洞悉头条背后的世界。在今日华尔街频道的六度解析中，我们将深入探究时事热点，为你揭开新闻背后的真相。在这个信息泛滥、真相难觅的时代，六度解析应运而生。我运用海量数据、人工智能整合以及专家观点，层层剥析每个故事，通过实时背景数据挖掘，确保你获得全面的新闻资讯。然而，我们关注的不仅仅是数据，更重要的是将它们串联起来。我将分析多方视角，揭示隐藏的脉络，为你提供单一媒体常常忽略的背景信息。无论是政治、经济，还是全球事务，我都将为你带来最具洞察力的分析。试想一下，拥有洞悉全局的能力，做出明智的决策，参与有意义的讨论，这就是六度解析带给你的价值。它不仅仅是新闻分析，更是一种赋能的工具。加入今日华尔街的六度解析，共同探索头条背后的故事。你通往深度理解的旅程，从这里开始。不要只是阅读新闻，要解码新闻，理解新闻，活出新闻。这一切尽在六度解析。立即订阅，不错过任何真知灼见，因为了解真相仅仅是个开始。
Hello， 大家好，欢迎来到今天华尔街论坛的直播的现场。那么在刚才的华尔街六度里啊，我们也是跟大家完整的呈现了昨天美国总统川普在一场记者会上的这个一句惊世骇俗的表达。那么我是关注到，在昨天晚上呢，美国的几乎所有主流媒体啊，都是把川普的这一句话呢作为了一个大标题。川普在昨天啊直接就说啊，乌克兰是挑起了俄乌战争，导致其领土遭到破坏啊，1000万人丧生。那包括 CNN 啊，包括华尔街日报，包括英国的广播公司 BBC 的报道都提到啊，川普在这一场发布会中直言，乌克兰应尽快举行大选。他先是将乌克兰和欧洲国家排除在会议之外，又发出了上述的言论，引起了欧洲多国的一个忧虑。那么在昨天晚上，几乎所有媒体或者说绝大部分非常有影响力的媒体啊，他们比较一致的声音说，川普的说辞是迎合了俄方，那使人担忧美俄双方将达成一个有利俄罗斯而不利乌克兰的和平协议。但是呢，美国国务卿卢比奥曾做出保证，说美俄达成协议将对各方公平。那么在周末的时候啊，那么可能我个人是关注到，那么在这一周其实是川普重回白宫，川普第2任期整整1周的时间。那么川普在这一个月的时间啊，那么川普在这1个月的时间里啊，做了非常多的事。那么在未来再回看川普的这第1个月啊，那肯定有一些做的是对的，有一些做的是错的。只不过那川普的这个做的事情说的话呢，实在是太多了，留给媒体去一一审视以及核查和平衡的确实不多啊。那但是在周末呢，纽约时报他们的这个社论是几乎是可以理解为是打向川普的一张大字报。那他的这个纽约时报的社论就说，川普这样一个胁迫的策略必须接受更多的挑战。这可能也是纽约时报这里呢对川普重回白宫1个月的一个非常简洁的总结。那么以上呢也是华尔街六度想跟大家分享的，在过去的24小时可能是最重要的一个新闻。接下来还是来关注到今天的话题里要跟大家讨论的几条大的信息。第一条大的信息就和中国的